Who says turning 70 is just a time to slow down and rest? This man turned his golden years into a financial prime. While many people in their 70s begin to retreat into a slower life, living modestly on a limited pension and facing concerns about their health, the gentleman in today's story is flipping that narrative on its head. He didn't come from wealth, nor did he rely on his children for support. And yet, every single day, his bank account receives $200, not a small amount for someone who is officially retired. So what exactly did he do? Why is it that, at an age when most people feel like their time has passed, he is living a richer, more intentional life than ever before? In this video, you'll hear the real story. No hype, no sugarcoating. It's a journey of reinventing life in the twilight years, built on smarts, patience, and just the right amount of calculated risk. Before we dive in, drop a positive affirmation in the comments. Something like a promise to yourself to invite more goodness into your life. For example, I embrace aging with abundance and joy. Or feel free to write your own wish. And make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on stories like this. Let's build a space full of uplifting energy, where we grow and thrive together. So who is this 70-year-old man who's managed to make retirement look this colorful? The answer is coming up next. Meet Robert Wilson, our main character today, a 70-year-old man living in the peaceful suburbs of Tucson, Arizona. His modest house sits in a quiet neighborhood where the winters are mild and the summers are filled with sunshine. He lives with his beloved wife, Linda, his partner of more than 45 years. They have 2 grown children, both married, living in different states. From the outside, Robert's life looked settled, the kind of standard retirement most people envision. Before retiring, he worked as a mechanical engineer for over 35 years in industrial manufacturing. He was the type of man who was detail-oriented, hard-working, not one for showing off, but deeply respected by both his co-workers and superiors for his solid work ethic and dedication. However, when he turned 67, company policy forced him into retirement. Financially, he was prepared. Emotionally, not so much. Robert never expected how disoriented and empty he would feel once his working life ended. In the early days after retirement, his mornings no longer had a clear purpose. No more meetings, no more blueprints, no clear goals to strive toward. From being a constantly busy man, he suddenly found himself with endless free time. At first, he tried to fill the gap by gardening, fixing little things around the house, or going on afternoon walks with Linda. But over time, those joys faded. A feeling of emptiness and lack of direction began to creep in. Some afternoons, he would sit for hours in his recliner, just watching the sun go down, feeling like he was slowly disappearing from the world. He once said, "I felt like I was being pushed out of society, like there was nothing left for me to contribute. Everything I used to be good at, no one needed anymore. I didn't even know if I had any value left." That kind of heavy, sinking feeling is something many retired folks have experienced. That sense of being past your prime. But in the middle of that emptiness, something unexpected happened. A tiny spark of hope began to grow. And that is where this story starts to change. Then one afternoon, seemingly just another ordinary day, a moment happened that changed everything. Some moments in life arrive without drama or noise, but still shake your soul to its core. For Robert, that moment was not a tragic accident, not a shocking twist, not a life-altering event. It was just a quiet, rainy afternoon, silent, still, matching the quiet ache he had been carrying for far too long. He sat alone by the window, hands wrapped around a cup of cold tea, eyes following the last autumn leaves drifting gently, unknowingly, like memories falling away from his life. His wife, the one who had held his hand through decades of storms, had passed away on a quiet October morning. No warning, no drawn-out pain. Just a final breath, soft and sudden. But in its softness, it left behind a silence too heavy to fill. The house that once echoed with laughter now held only the ghost of memories. He did not feel older because of wrinkles, but because the loneliness crept into every breath, every heartbeat. He had once believed that retirement would be a reward, the gift after years of tireless effort. He had dreamed of lazy mornings, relaxed afternoons in the garden, and peaceful nights free from work stress. But when that dream became reality, it shocked him. Too much rest, without purpose or connection, turned out to be its own kind of prison. Waking up each morning no longer felt like a joy, but a battle against meaninglessness. Nobody needed him. Nobody asked what he thought, how he felt, or what he was doing. And that, more than anything, broke his heart. The feeling of slowly being forgotten by the world. Then one day, the first spark of light broke through, and it came not from something grand, but from a tiny hand, the hand of his grandson. That day, the little boy begged Robert to take him to the park. On a tree-lined path, Robert suddenly felt alive again, enthusiastically explaining each bird, every flower, each blade of grass along the trail. The child's eyes lit up as if Robert were telling a fairy tale only he could tell. And then, when his grandson hugged him tightly and said, "You're so good at this. You should teach this to more people." That one sentence was like a key unlocking a door that had been shut inside Robert for too long. From the innocent words of a child, a new seed began to grow in his heart. The question he had been avoiding for so long, "Am I still useful?" now had a bright, clear answer. Yes, absolutely. Not for money, not for recognition, but for the chance to feel connected to life again, to share something, a skill, a story, a spark of inspiration. And from that moment, he began again. Not in a flashy way, not with some grand master plan. Just a man who once thought he had reached the end, realizing there were still alleyways waiting to be explored. And step by step, he began the journey back to himself, not as someone who retired, but as someone reborn. But starting over, especially at an age when most people are used to slowing down, is never easy. This was not just about motivation or inspiration. It was a real journey, one that started from zero. After that life-changing talk with his grandson, Robert's mind started racing. The question, "What else can I still do?" played in his head like background music that never stopped. He, the former mechanical engineer who once led factory teams and commanded machines, now struggled just to open an app on his phone without asking his grandson 3 times. He felt like the world had sped ahead without him, leaving him behind. At night, lying awake, he asked himself tough questions. Am I too slow now? Am I still sharp enough to learn something new? Do the things I once knew and did still matter anymore? And the hardest question of all, does anyone even want to hear what I have to say? Would anyone want to learn from me? That question didn't just doubt his ability. It doubted his very existence. Self-doubt is a quiet enemy. It eats away at your confidence, bit by bit. It wasn't that he was unwilling to try. It was that he was scared. Scared of being a joke in a world full of fast, tech-savvy young people who seemed to speak a different language. But even that fear wasn't bigger than his greatest fear: living a life without meaning, without purpose, without connection. So, he chose to learn, not to catch up with anyone, but to reconnect with himself. Not to compete, but to carve a new path. He started with simple steps, learning to use a computer, clicking each mouse button with a shaky hand. Sometimes he even mistyped his own name. Other times, a single wrong click cost him hours of fixing. But he did not quit. Like a child writing their first letters, he was patient, little by little. He went on YouTube and watched tutorials for beginners. Then he learned how to create a simple blog where he could tell stories from his life, share tips on fixing machines, and pass on the safety skills he had mastered over decades. He joined forums, online classes for seniors. At first, he feared being pitied, but he soon discovered something beautiful. So many people were just like him. They were also searching for a reason to keep going, and they did not laugh at him. They encouraged him. They became his quiet yet steady companions. In that community, he no longer felt alone. Of course, it was not always smooth. Some days, he would film a whole video only to realize the audio had failed. Some blog posts got no views, no shares. He felt discouraged. He even thought about giving up. But he reminded himself, this is not a race. This is a journey to rediscover my value. And so, he kept going, with patience, with kindness for himself. Every new skill he learned, from editing photos to writing catchy titles to replying to comments, was not just opening a door to new possibilities. It was proof that he could still grow, still offer something. The challenges remain: age, technology, the slower pace. But now, he no longer runs from them, because he knows now, success is not about how skilled you are or how much money you make. It is about having the courage to begin again. And in that moment, he was not just surviving, he was truly living. After once believing that everything had already come to an end. Someone once said, when you truly find what makes your heart beat faster, money will come as a reward for your sincerity. After countless restless nights, awkward attempts at learning technology, and failures that almost made him give up, Robert finally tasted his first sweet fruit. And what he gained was not just the victory of overcoming himself. It was an entirely new path, one he had never dared to imagine: financial independence in retirement. In the past, he thought money was a closed chapter in his life. A pension was the limit, the fate shared by all elderly people. But slowly, step by step, from what seemed like small actions, he built a steady income model. No pressure, no stress, just consistent and meaningful. $200 per day. That number might not mean much to a younger person. But for him, someone who once thought life was now just quiet days passing by, it was the strongest affirmation that I still have value. No one hired him. No one paid him a salary. Every dollar came from him creating value on his own terms. And that value was welcomed by others, willingly. He now begins each day with a soft smile, not because there is too much to do, but because everything he does brings him joy. A few times a week, he teaches online mechanical skills classes via Zoom. The lessons are simple, practical, and easy to apply. His students, from young tech lovers to peers trying to fix an old machine in their garage, are engaged and grateful. In those sessions, he does not just teach skills, he passes on the love for a profession he spent his whole life with. At the same time, he discovered a passion for vintage items, treasures that carry the marks of time. He went through boxes of old belongings, cleaned each item carefully, took photos, wrote descriptions, and listed them for sale on eBay. Each item carried a story, a memory, and through that, he was not just selling products, he was selling a connection to the past. Buyers did not just send money, they sent thank you notes, little letters saying they saw parts of their own memories in what he sold. He did not stop there. He started writing a blog as a way to talk to himself about loneliness, loss, unexpected joy, and the hope of starting over. His posts touched many hearts. People began following him, sharing their own stories, and from that, he found the inspiration to take another step, creating YouTube videos. In each video, his voice is deep and calm. His stories are not dramatic or tragic, just real. So real, in fact, that viewers feel like they are listening to their grandfather, their father, or even their future self. Every comment is a message of encouragement. Every share is like a warm, invisible hug, and little by little, he felt his heart healing. What mattered most was that he did not turn himself into someone chasing targets. There were no strict schedules, no deadlines, no bosses breathing down his neck. He chose to work flexibly, gently, just a few hours each day at his own pace. Each hour of work did not exhaust him. It made him more focused, more alive. And on the day he received his very first payment, just $25 from an online class, he sat quietly for a long time, just staring at that small number in his bank account. He did not smile. He simply let the tears fall. Because in that tiny number was a massive journey, one of courage, of rebirth, and of a simple but powerful truth. I am still useful in this life. When those first dollars appeared in his account, he did not dream of riches or think of success. He just sat in silence, eyes fixed on the phone screen where that modest number showed up. A number that meant everything. It was not just a few dozen dollars earned after retirement. It was solid proof that he, the man who once felt left behind by life, could still create value, that he could still be recognized, that he could still begin again, regardless of his age. This journey did not start in the spotlight. It began in confusion, in loneliness after the love of his life passed away, in mornings where he woke up unsure of why he still existed. It began in that feeling of being lost in a world moving too fast, while he seemed stuck in old memories. But he chose not to fall. Step by step, he learned to move forward, slowly, patiently, from turning on a computer, creating an account, to writing blogs and sharing old skills. Every step started with the bravery to overcome the biggest mental barrier. I am too old to start again. And each small step gave him not only new skills, but something even more valuable, faith in himself. That moment taught him that what makes the difference is not age. It is not how well you understand technology. It is how you think. While many others his age chose rest and safety, he chose to act. Not to prove anything to the world, but to live true to his heart, to live each day with purpose. To him, aging is not the end. It is a new chapter, one where he lives gently but deeply, waking each morning with gratitude. He is no longer trapped by performance pressure. He is free to do what he loves, fully and mindfully. He learns like a child discovering the world for the first time, not afraid to make mistakes, not bothered by being slow as long as he is sincere. Editing videos, sharing experiences, writing simple blog posts, he does it not for fame or fortune, but because he knows that somewhere out there, someone needs a word of encouragement, a real story, a positive example to move forward. He does not try to be special. But because he lives true to himself, with an open mind and a generous heart, he has become an inspiration to many, not just a symbol for older adults, but a beacon for anyone who ever thought, it is too late. And for him, that is more than enough to call it a life worth being proud of. His story is not a fairy tale. It is a real journey, the story of someone who faced loss, loneliness, and the belief that life was over, but chose to live again with heart and unshakable faith in the face of time. From a retired man who once thought life had left him behind, he rose to become a symbol of vitality in old age, someone brave enough to learn, to try, to fail, and to share. Someone who used his experiences to inspire others, not with fancy words, but with the way he lived, each and every day. Simple, but full of strength. And you, yes, you, who are still watching at this very moment, maybe you carry a spark too. No matter your age, where you are, or what you have been through, remember, it is never too late to start a new chapter. You do not need to have it all figured out. You just need one first step, one small action, one decision from the heart to begin your journey back to life. Before you leave this video, leave a positive comment like, "Aging is a new chapter, not the end." A promise that you are choosing to keep going, to live deeply and meaningfully. Share this video if it inspired you, and do not forget to subscribe to the channel so you do not miss whatever story comes next. Because who knows? The next story we tell could be yours. Aging is not fading. Aging is the most radiant autumn of life.